Right, today we're here having an alternative A&E conference, and I'm with Tony Blake and Joshua Denny, and we're going to talk about conscious being.
That is a starting point.
And so we're going to have it like a little dialogue going. Do you want to start it off, Tony?
I'll start it off and you see if you can shut me up.
Yeah, I'm going to throw Joshua in.
Yeah,
I'll try.
You poke Joshua and Joshua pokes me.
Yes.
That's the kind of thing. Now, it started with this idea of this word, conscious being, because it's around very much in this particular conference, that sort of language. And it easily conjures up for people about somebody really being a solid something, you know, and conscious and so on. And there's a lot of talk in what can generally call spiritual circles about becoming more conscious and this kind of phrases. And I really wondered what this means. I'll try and explain a bit why I wonder about it, because I have to explain, because most people say, of course we know what it means to be more conscious. And I think, oh really? If you really know, then it shouldn't be a problem. You could just
be it.
Yeah.
Get on with it.
Get on with it. And it sort of appears to be a very complicated and difficult thing. So it's a situation of you aiming for something which you don't know what it is. So how can you possibly get there? You know, what's the vector or the direction? And you have to recognize the import of saying becoming more conscious, because this really turns into having more of what you have already. You know, so this is almost a repetition of the same, or a bit stronger version of the same, because as far as people go. And let's take, for example, there's a lot of support for the rhetoric around be here now, live in the present moment. And I say, that's fine, but do you understand what the present moment is? Now, in psychology, I believe what people really are thinking of when they talk about the present moment is what's called the specious present. Specious. I mean, it's not substantial, it's apparent, and it's about a period of about 2 or 3 seconds. And like I'm talking to you now, you know, the sound of my voice, there's a certain quantity of it, there's a certain duration of it, which is like I feel is now. Beyond this, what we were doing when we came into the room is outside, I say is outside my present moment. But so I should bring my attention into this sphere of action. When I register my voice, I can see you and all this, make these gestures. But imagine it's all quite a small area of 2 or 3 seconds. And I can refer you to research on this, but it's reasonably well recognized by a lot of people. That's how it feels like. The nowness field is quite a short,
narrow bandwidth
time basis, a few seconds, or you know, more or less, give or take, and that's this kind of thing. So, and you think, well, and you say, well, that's because the implied there in that idea is that this is where you can really do something, you know, because can you do something now? You can't do something yesterday, you can't do something, you do something now. But again, this, to my mind, produces a pretty limited picture of one's possibilities. Because what can I do in this narrow 2 or 3 seconds? It's not really much. I can't go on a journey, I can't learn something. It becomes a very poor region. We say, oh, it's poor, but it has feeling, a sense of presence, it has a colour to it, vivifyingness and so on, yes, but it's pretty limited, you see. Now, as you know, I studied with Mr. Bennett for a time, and he was one of the followers of Gurdjieff in what's called the Fourth Way, and he was not the only one who became obsessed with time. And so you say, well, Bennett had 2 hobbies, one was time and one was will. And he put them together at one point. And this hobby of time then, we're always looking into other kinds of time. Deeper time, let's call it like this. Because it senses you couldn't pack into this kind of little present moment anything very much at all, which is significant. You need a bigger canvas. So what was this bigger canvas, you see? And it affects things like, what can I
I'm here to have absolutely no, can't there be an intimate connection with the moment which I might record on my calendar as yesterday, and the moment I might put on my diary as tomorrow, was not just a thought and something recorded in the diary, but can there be an intimate connection? So, because the thing about this little narrow present moment is that I'm intimately connected with myself, because it's realistic, it's convincing, this is what I really am. Actually here, whatever I can do now. It's all, it's all got that immediacy, power, this kind of thing. But you can't make sense of, as we were in our group anyway, looking at Life is Only Real, his reference to all these moments in his life separated by decades as being vividly present, resonating with other moments. People who live significant lives, I think, have this. They have this resonance across their whole lifespan. They don't go along like this little narrow slit, So leaving all that dead and gone, also had mysterious, somehow they're connected outside
of the linear
present moment. Like one of the formidable elements, particularly of Bennett's approach, was something very important for our human life, a decision. And the way he taught us and developed the understanding in us is that this decision does actually connect you with the future. It's not like making a plan with all sorts of good intentions, which is the usual way of taking a decision, or not something agreed at a board meeting. We have decided that and put it into words. And you actually do it in the future.
Yeah.
And that, he said, is a real decision. That really works, that commits you. And what people ordinarily call decision is just having an idea.
So you're projecting that decision into the future?
You are
the future.
You make a connection with the actual moment.
When you make a decision, that act, what you decide, is already done in the future. You see, you get a weirdness with the language, and I don't know if it helps to refer to something which Joseph Needleman put in one of his books about the soul in time. This exercise where you adopt the attitude that, say, what you're going to do tomorrow, is already done.
Proceeding as if so.
Big fun?
Gurdjieff mentioned something about proceeding as if so.
As if
it's already done.
But if you do it, I've only done it slightly, but it's an extraordinary effect. It changes why. One of the reasons why is that you enter into this larger present moment. You're not fooled by this small present moment. It's sort of like this old image, I know it was ever true, I saw it as a child, of a chicken with its beak on salt in a circle and how it couldn't lift its beak off. Have you ever seen it? No, it's an old story, but it's like the Yazidis do in the circle. Yeah. But it's like portraying what I said. Our nose is right in this narrow little window. You see, we can't see the bigger picture. This bigger picture is just on the news, you see, or somebody tells us, or we think about it, but it's not
in our inner world
really there for us. And if there's anything in this approach from Gurdjieff and Bennett and all these people, is that you don't need just to think about these broader things. You can make the contact and be there. And I think that's awfully exciting, to be able to do that. And so you get these practices, and so anyway, going back to the conscious being, imagine if people basing their idea of being conscious being on that kind of narrow consciousness, is not going to be very much worthwhile, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's what you're saying totally resonates with me. I'm obviously not as experienced as yourself, but yes, there seems to be this cult of now. I remember writing, just coming back to me, I wrote a piece of writing I called that was that Eckhart Tolle book.
Yes.
So I just wrote a piece called The Power of the Illusion of Now. So yes, there seems to be this whole focus on what they call the present moment. But of course that's down to your interpretation. It's obviously down to whatever you're working with from the start of what you know is your present moment. You're like, oh yeah, I know what I know what presence is, I know what you're talking about. So I'm just going to cling on to that. So yeah, I totally agree with you that I can see certain benefits from that, like maybe, I don't know, psychologically or physiologically, you know, what they call being present. You know, there can be it can be.
That's important.
Yeah, it can be relaxing, but it's. From my own interpretation, and just being brutally honest, looking at people, you know, who kind of spout that position, it's just, to me, they're getting off. It's like a drug, you know, you're getting off on some kind of mindless state. But yeah, what you're talking about this increasing the present moment and decision reminds me of Maurice Nicoll.
Yes.
He talked about the time, I think he
Living
specifically,
time.
yeah,
Living time.
he specifically referred to that, I say the larger moment, or maybe whatever would be our interface with it, between the small bubble and the bigger bubble, as this, what you call the time body. So, okay, then there's a difference between that, I would say, then the memory of personality, remembering through personality, like you're saying, I see the news or whatever, I had like, yeah, that my past is back there somewhere, it's done, gone, future's, you know, it's not here. But what I would say, just in my own experience, I call it, I'm just using the term essence memory. If you remember something, I'm only talking about the past now, obviously remembering, we had to remember the future, but it's a nice, interesting task. What I would call, essence memory, if I remember something through that, it's a simultaneous, for me, but this is what it suggests, a simultaneous present experience. I'm here, wherever here is, like in the room now, but I'm also there. Let's say I pick a memory from my childhood. These memories that I can use from that have to be pretty, they're usually early or intense memory, they stick out for some reason. But they're now. So there seems to be this, this simultaneousness, this extra dimensionality. I don't just have to be here.
And that automatically makes for more being. Another word to throw in here is, well, anyway, now I started it, there's a certain kind of special terminology of Bennett about this, because you say there is a value in this ordinary cult of be here nowness, because it's you go to get something which is alive now, and there's a sense of vitality and life in it, you know. And so there is a transition from some other inferior state, to which Bennett gave the name of automatism, and that's part of the training in this fourth way and so on, to recognize the power of automatism. You can walk into a room, have a conversation, and it's just a mechanism. You're not even there, you know, in the sense, you know. And if you get this kind of element of now, has time in it and flow and life, and it's possible you can learn something new. You can register an impression and learn something. And this is, for most people, the satisfying thing, and you want more and more intensity of that. And so you can look for drugs and sex and adventure and risk, and to enhance this. So people get this. There's another level, he said, which is very problematic for an ordinary audience, and he said, which is the truly conscious. And he, like Goethe, said that what we call, people in general call consciousness, is a pathetic substitute,
fictitious,
for the real thing. And he also then implied that, and because people say, well, what more is there? I am conscious. You know, this is what it is. And we say, no. And it's almost the opposite of what you have now. And would first of all appear to you like emptiness. And then, as somebody mentioned here before. So that's a formidable problem, this question of conscious being, because the sense people have of consciousness is actually an inhibition, a barrier. And the puzzle is, how could we know of something beyond what we're stuck in? We're stuck in it. How do we get this thing? It's like a rumor, you know, a lovely book written once called Rumor of Angels. It's a rumor. So you heard about this stuff called consciousness. This kind of thing. What's it like then? I said, I don't know really, but it's kind of bigger, you know.
So how do you, if you've just heard of it as a rumour, how do you find out more about it to see if it is real?
well, you look, what would you do? You say, your mates, anybody seen one? And this is big or seen, have the taste of it. And of course, part of it is simply, reading books, and because all these books and things are laid down by people to help in this, to give clues. And you can't, people try, but you can't really directly describe it, and that will help you. But it's a clue, and sometimes you get the taste. You find, I like the metaphor, it's like a thread, which you have to find individually. And it's like, you follow the thread, and it might lead you somewhere, but it's a little taste or something like that.
What do you think, Josh? Do you want to take it somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, totally, yeah. I mean, I don't understand. Take it for granted that I'm assuming I've had some experiences of that. I have no idea how you would exactly try to go about it through words, trying to show that to somebody. Like, Tony's saying there must be, you can be reading books, it can be through external material, but it has to lock you onto something that is already there in your experience. To me, this like kind of, I am already there, like this unconscious, what he calls unconscious. That I am already there, but for some reason I'm not. Because I'm trapped in this bubble, I'm not recognising it. So these things, it's like they are going on in our experience all the time, but they're just like, I don't know, they're right in front of our eyes, but they're kind of clouded over. So yeah, how you can point someone to what is already in front of their face, if you like. Tricky question, Yeah.
So in esoteric terms, it would probably be called lifting the veil.
Lifting the veil, and you think, well, can I lift my own veil, so to speak, and do a striptease, whatever. Or
The Dance of the Seven Veils.
yeah, that's obviously a metaphor for all of that.
So where would we work on it? Is it something we could do ourselves, or do we need to speak to someone about it? I know we've been saying about reading about it.
Reading them, also meeting with people. Who knows? It's incredibly, not incredibly, but I think it's quite individual. And like we're going to refer to Gurdjieff, it's very strange in some of his writings. He talks about what pushed him on his path or helped him or moved him. So he often talks about accidents. Only accidentally have I come across this.
Yes.
And it's quite curious to see he had a straight method or something. Just something happened to him, from outside, and then this gave him a nudge. And I think it's more or less true for any of us. But there's also something came to my mind just then, an image of, because there's a sense about consciousness, and I say, where it has forgetting in it. You then really believe that children are conscious. Then we forget.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what happens? You've got to battle with other people for attention, for power, for your existence, so to speak, and that cramps you. It's like people are struggling for survival, get very cramped and bigoted and close-minded and all the rest of it. And so it seems in order to survive, you have to narrow your world. And children go through this, and it's a major kind of trauma. Like this it's the kind of simple thing we're thinking to feel something, but children are told not to dismiss their imaginary friends.
Yes.
You
Because if they carry on with their imaginary friends, I think in the modern day people think, oh, they're a little bit mad, don't they?
Yeah.
They do.
That's bad.
And this is because these are unreal, you see. But what an imaginary friend gives is this greater world. And like the old stories give a greater world and all this kind of thing, but that's forgotten because of this be realistic.
Because they might not really be imaginary friends, they could be like real spiritual beings or something, or
Exactly.
Like not Tony Blake, you're Tony Blake, but William Blake used to talk to the spirits of dead people and sometimes couldn't differentiate between the living and the dead, could he?
That's right. And now it's treated as psychopathy, some kind of illness, and it was in one time quite normal. But so that that's another aspect of it. But there's also this kind of property of consciousness, right? I think it's very important. It will sound abstract because in a way sometimes a lot of the teachers and explainers and people into this, leaders, use that language about this kind of, they call it abstract. And it's, why? Because it's connected to the form of things, the overall shape and organization of things, rather than any particular content. You could talk about this little ordinary here now stuff is giving us colors or something like this, but the design of the painting is in consciousness.
Yeah.
And what you have in there is this kind of capacity, like memory, like Peter was saying about Beelzebub, and something happened in the first page, so to speak, is also in the last page, or very distant. And how can you see these together? Only consciousness can bring these together, because as you read through, you leave one thing and go on to the new thing. And that's kind of thing, Gurdjieff used to say, you put more stuff in and your stuff leaves you. So you're always in this narrow window. But what can embrace this is something of a different order. So you've got to be able to cultivate that or remember that. Remember this first, remember, like the parts of oneself. And you're remembering, you're putting yourself together again.
Yeah.
So do you think it's also to do with having to learn to rethink how you think, to change how we...
Well, I think it's very important. It's something very much ignored, and in a way it's a very primitive era now, because thinking is despised, so to speak, and rejected. And if you say the way in which you understand your world, the forms of things, actually limit your possibilities. What you can do. People think, I can do a practice and it's just doing, I don't have to worry about anything. If you've got the old thinking, you stay in the old world. Your perspective on things, because you're always interpreting everything in that old model. I mean, don't search for an example. I mean, it's like a friend of mine who's got into this form of thing. Look, I am here in this body. I am an isolated organism. I have no direct connection with you or the world, and I have to find some mediation, and I can never be sure I see what's really going on outside me, and all this sort of thing, which comes from really about the last few hundred years, a certain kind of mentality developed in Western culture. But whatever comes up, you always see things in those terms. You never allow any other possibility. And he's a wonderful man. He's a great, lovely guy, I asked him about how he felt about his daughter and whether this was real or not. But it's not understood. What's called your worldview, your Weltanschauung, is at quite a deep level in oneself.
Yeah. Just going back a little bit about children conscious.
About what?
About children are conscious.
Yes, yeah.
And they have somehow that expansive consciousness, let's call it that, has to close down into that little keyhole.
Yeah.
It seems a strange process, because that contraction, I mean, I'm guessing that we would assume it's done for some kind of like survival reasons. That has to happen maybe in order to get by in the world. So you'd think that that's almost for some kind of self-preservation thing, but by the very nature of that contraction, that seems to be what exposes you. Like, I'm curious why you would think that needs to happen. Like, imagine a child not going through that. What their kind of how would they relate to other people? What would their... I'm not saying that's impossible, but I'm very curious. Like, all the like you're saying, that closed off, me over here, you over there. None of that wouldn't be, would it? There'd be none of that. So
well, there's kind of mind you read about it is. There's also an issue amongst human beings together. There's a vulnerability, because there's that as having a certain kind of openness can be very risky, because we are beings together and we can affect each other so much. I'm just jumping now to another pseudo example, which is that you've probably been through this. You practice something, you strive something, and something shifts in you, and you're with your friends, and they might say, "What's wrong with you?" what are you going through? And the effect of these friends is to try and push you back
Yes.
to what you were.
Something foreign has entered the room.
Yeah. And often your so-called friends or your worst enemies, they want you to conform to their image of you. So this is the sort of thing which happens, you see. And their children in education and so on, their actual instinctive reactions, their emotions, their attitudes and so on, are always being denied. So they don't trust their experience. They have to go through the bureaucracy.
They suddenly feel like they're the outsider. And making others, if others make you feel like you're the outsider, sometimes it means you want to come back in because you think, I don't want to be the one that's outside.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, it's hard, isn't it? You know? And Colin Wilson's book on that theme, The Outsider, somebody suggested the other day, was all these poets and so on, and lots of the ones he described committed suicide because they couldn't bear it. You know, and you just think of, say, the Chinese culture, which is known for, they always say, you don't put your head above the parapet. You don't make yourself distinct from the group, because it's not done. You see, this kind of thing. And so it's shaped their culture in a certain way.
But like what Josh was saying, where in human evolution did it suddenly become that we shouldn't be developing ourselves, and we shouldn't become conscious beings?
Now that's great. That's really this. We don't really know the answer, but one of the only bit I can throw in at this point is, evolutionary theorists look and say what's special about this human species, what's supposedly special about it is this high degree of cooperation they can exhibit in their behavior. They say, but it has the other side of it that's built on rejection of what's outside the group. You see, and you can see it all around you, that it's like the mafia family can be sort of very close together, but they're crimes in the general, they're criminals in the general society.
Just you mentioned mafia family, so another thing we kind of I want to say something like the barbarism of the family unit. I don't know, that's all that comes to mind on that. But going back to what you were saying about our world view, and that's quite deep in us, and that's you're talking about that through which we interpret everything, and you use the word forms. So I'm thinking that how can we try to make connection with the form rather than this content that is shaped by it. So obviously normally in my thinking I'm just following. I call it thinking, but I call it thinking, but what my attention on, I would say, is not thinking. My attention is on this. Okay, if I'm thinking of pictures, this picture, or this word, this word. So what my attention on is just thought. Okay? But we call it, we say I'm thinking. Yeah, no, but I'm just thinking. I'm just engaging this picture, this word. And like you said, there's no kind of. I might be following it to an extent, but what comes in, this thought pushes the next one out. So again, there's this small present moment. So if I call that thinking, but I want to say that what is actually is thinking is what the larger sphere that those images that brings those images together, and why do I think that my thinking makes sense?
Why should it make sense?
Why do I think that my own thinking makes sense? You see
bloody good question that is, like your question. And this is, how do you know you're just looking up your own fundament in this in this kind of thing? Philosophers of science have wondered about this, and they're even they draw diagrams where you look at the universe and actually you're seeing yourself. It's like seeing the back of one's own head. When you look out at the starry night, it's all the light rays are going through infinity back and looking at your own head. These are just images, but I want to stay with the seriousness of your question about this. for me, so connected with, how to say, with this being able to enter into the form and also leave that form. Is breathe in, breathe out. Or rub on, rub off, like the Karate Kid. It's being able to enter into forms without attachment. And that because, why? Because then you can see, you have the evidence of what the effect of each form is. And I think that's as best as I know how to do. But the critical thing is not to get stuck in one form. And to me it seems very sensible. One form will give you one answer, two will give you a bit more scope, maybe three give you a bit more. And these different perspectives.
Yeah.
You know. So it's only a pragmatic, not an absolute answer. But yeah, I want to, of course, want to forget yours. You see, this thing about spiritual development and evolution, did Cro-Magnon man have group meetings, you know?
Of course he did.
Oh, how was it? I mean, this is very important. As I only know the mythology and also the archaeology, I was reminded of Bennett's depictions of history in which he blatantly introduces the role of magicians. And you see,
yeah, I know.
super beings which sort of are exemplars of another order of intelligence which then draws them on. And here I'm very thinking very much of modern examples of in pictures of 2001 and the monolith. You know, this is things thrown into human life, and they touch it in something and they see something differently. And what they see is not an explanation or a theory, but it's something which draws them on. You know, is, you know, in 2001 is that they can see themselves having a better life. Something just like that. And you want to say?
Yeah, brilliant film. I mean, you know, yeah. I mean, I heard, like, apparently, I can't remember the director's name at the moment, but...
Kubrick?
Yeah. Apparently, like, you know, people wouldn't talk about his, you know, what was the meaning of the film for ages and blah, 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 and eventually he did, but whatever. That, his description didn't mean much to me. But yeah, so the obelisk, the tower, it's this form, isn't it? There's this order in it. You know, they're in this wilderness. You know, there's no straight lines. So then this monolith appears.
Ah, that's true. Absolutely. Yes.
Some kind of principle of order. So again, there's all these images of St. George and, you know, all that going on with
Michael.
Yes.
Although this thing is black, that's why it's so significant, I think, in this age we have in astrophysics, a black hole, because that also, I think, actually in science, things are discovered which are actually revelations.
Yes.
Which affect people. I mean, imagine Gurdjieff's time, black holes, quasars, you know, gravitational waves, none of that. Now it's here, and you think, well, this is just what people read in popular science, but no, maybe it's penetrating.
Yeah, no,
you know. Everybody's affected by this image of a black hole now. Everybody.
Yeah.
Crossing the event horizon.
Yeah.
We don't really know what a black hole is, do we?
No, it's almost a priori we don't, you know. People worry, is there something going on in there which shouldn't be going on? But I want to stick with your question. This is so, when did it all begin?
Why?
Why?
Because maybe we were living a golden age before where we were more open to being conscious beings. And it seems like I think even Gurdjieff says it, we're de-evolving, aren't we?
We are what?
We're de-evolving, not evolving.
Don't he said that explicitly, but he was always hankering about previous civilizations and so on, and that's a whole school of thought saying that there was this golden age in which there was this right order in society and all the rest of it, and the right kind of people were in charge, and then that's the whole system of, you know, perspective on human life, and this is a degenerate age. My question is, because I don't know their portrayal of the golden age is all that appealing, and one sort of thing, but let me not be facetious about this. It's, well, what can I say? Look, I wrote a whole bloody book about this.
And your book's called?
A Gymnasium of Beliefs in Higher Intelligence.
And it's
that was
still
part
available.
of this step into this place and step out, but always remember to step out into a new one and so on. But also there's this one that I called it archaism, you know, it's the ancestors, the previous age, the golden age, which is big in India, the yugas and all of that. And so we're in an age where futurism. And so we get part of our teaching now from science fiction novels, like that one about what was Stella, something. And
Stella Nova?
Well, it was Stella, I think it was the film, remember rightly, the Earth's in a distressing state and they get this wormhole created by aliens, and they turn out these aliens appear to be future human beings. And why? Because they're struggling with the expression, I think it's a genuine struggle expression, of these influences coming from the future, which is the opposite of coming from the past. And that's, what can I apologize, that's just a speculation. But once we, yes, there is a thing, how did this begin? And in terms of human evolution, the ordinary, well, the basic scientific approaches, of course, they never want to have an idea of a sudden change, something really new happening. So got to be gradual bits and bobs, so to speak, and there's this human species, and it's all an accumulation of these things, and they have no purpose as such, but it just has turned out like that. And people, most like us and around here, and they want to think, no, there was a design in it, a purpose in it, that something is striving to come through us. And so it's not necessarily treating the human species as the acme of creation, but as part of a process of revealing what is higher in the world and what is lower.
Is it in the Gurdjieff cosmology? We're quite low down in the ranks anyway, aren't we?
I suppose we are.
As humans.
In terms of the rare creation and so on, but there's a touch of this kind of hints of a kind of democracy in it, you know, so that even this concept of three-brain beings is what he said. This is like a touchstone, you get something which is autonomous, which is, because every three-brain being has something of their own, you know, and in a sense it's as good as anybody else's. Yeah?
Yeah, well, doesn't he talk about, like, you know, there was no being, so to speak, till three-brain being? Something like that, anyway, but, or, you know, it's only through the three brains that individuality can come into being. So, yeah, what is individuality? Something unique about, let's say then, I mean, this is probably a rough use of the term individuality, but say something unique. What does uniqueness mean, you know? Like you're saying, if the three, I think Bennett mentioned it, like, what is the, what is the general definition of man, or he based it, I think, around the energy of decision, choice. So if we talk again, the action of decision is not going along the flow. It's not it's not incremental. I don't know if that's the right word, but there is it's a real change, you know. So I don't understand how we would. Maybe I'm not as up on science as you. Maybe there's some ideas along that in quantum. But I don't think, how could we, I don't think we can, in our normal worldview, accommodate a perspective of, well, I don't know, real change then, you know? Because there seems to be, in real change, no connection with what we would normally call the past and the future. So if it's not coming from the past, and not coming from the future in our normal way of seeing that, where are we placing this?
What do you think, Tony?
Well, it's almost a banal phrase, you see, about a self-made man. It's a curious thing, I think, in human space. Like, obviously, we have fathers and mothers, we come from lines of biological evolution on the planet and all that stuff. The atoms in our body have come from supernova. We can trace all of this down to here. And this promise, all I know is a promise they say, well, there's something quite independent can say. So not only is that thing in the Bible, I am that I am, but that was almost a hint that we can start this too. And we start, I am that I am. And you say, prove it. Oh, I can't prove it, but I say I.
I love I think I got it from you, Tony. I love the idea, the phrase that, I think it probably comes, you maybe got some influence that from Bennett about man decides God.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big role for man. Man decides God, and then poor old, maybe poor old Mr. God in that situation, he's put himself in a certain.
I think in the complications is you've got to understand number in a different way.
Well, that's interesting to me. Okay, I'll ponder that. Understand number in it.
Okay.
But yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, so like man decides God, and this thing about maybe just a question. Maybe I haven't realised. We're supposed to be striving for real I. I'm looking for. I'm trying to get it through this. I'm trying to get it through that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because I haven't come to this. I don't know. Call it a moment of culmination, where I can say that. Just I say I intone it. I don't know the word. Say it, and the saying of it is the doing of it, the making of it. Maybe I haven't realised that just because I haven't decided. I have it. Have's not the right word there.
It can seem foolish or arrogant, and people are going to say, prove it, or something like that. But I must admit that my subjectivity, as I'm speaking to you now, for my speaking is a miracle, a total miracle. And I know it's very important to care for what one says. And this has infinite power. Because, well, you talk about what connects you with possibilities. I was absolutely printed on mine. I was about, I don't know, I was 17 or something like that in my hometown, Bristol. I know exactly the street I was walking down. And how this, I call it a vision. I didn't see anything. There was a vision. I saw how this language, which has it with I, you, we, came from a higher source, and that we, as such, would not have been able to generate those pronouns. And this actually was a revelation. I still go back. I know exactly where I was on that street at that date. That's why I had sympathy with Gurdjieff's. Life is real, not the same extreme, but these absolute points in one's life. Too much. So, but it's also because Debbie is asking this. You see, what's happening between us? You see, I mean, of course, there's my opinion, my memory, my language, and your opinion, your memory, your language. But that's almost secondary. It is what
is real.
What is real is being made. Quote now, but in the larger sense, it's actually what is the future? Say, you speak the future. Every word we speak is the future. This is getting weird, isn't it?
So that's like the power of will and the power of wish, even maybe.
Yes.
But it's will more.
But will, and it's me. I was struck because my story about this is about this. Like you too would have a set of experiences and moments, and this kind of some of it from books and information, feelings. And there was the first seminar I had with Mr. Bennett on spiritual psychology. That's a wonderful achievement he made in that thing. And it had all these levels of man and the self, and then the spiritual levels. And they had an hourglass, you see, there was material, and that was the spiritual up here as a center. And that was interesting what's in the center. And we got up to the various selves, and we got to the true self. And I said, is that true self? Is that where everybody is equal? True self must be true for everybody. And we say, no, it's still, we're talking about being, and there are levels of being. So the only thing in which people are equal is the will. Now this is very astonishing for most people. They think some people have stronger will or better will than other people. But no, this is absolutely equal between people, and it went right in. Whew, and I never forgot it. And I said, okay, how can this manifest? And that's why I went eventually into dialogue, because I thought the one thing everybody can do is speak, more or less. Speak. And so I fused this idea of will with speech. And it can raise questions of authentic speech, habitual speech, egotistical speech, personality speech, and all that. But certainly, I don't care about all that. Just that people can speak, and it is will.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up you going back about speech. You're saying, yeah, it's important to you to pay attention and value your speaking. Pay attention to your use of words and things. And people might just take that in trying to be honest, But I get the sense that more what you're talking about is I visualize it as this like a cone going forward, and I'm putting all my attention into this cone, this kind of point, and I'm giving birth to the words. So you talk like more this kind of more participation in the act of speaking.
Yes. And that play in the myths, the angels were upset and man was given the power to name things, and all that tantalizing legends around. There's something really freaky about this. And we know, yes, speaking is one of the most mechanical things that people do.
Mechanical talking.
Pardon?
Mechanical talking.
Mechanical talking, and we get this talking gets on in our heads as well, and it's not very pleasant and useful at all. So how can this be? It's like out of the nature, out of the flow of things, out of the associations. There's something which is, like I take seriously some of Goethe's word, self-initiation. You don't need to initiate self-initiation. I take it actually seriously. You get to say, like when I marry something, I do.
But for self-initiation, you need will. If you don't have the proper will...
What? You don't have will, you see, will has you.
I think what we're talking about there is some kind of...
It's not a power, you see.
Yeah, I think the only way I could try to describe, coming more to will or whatever, I'd have to speak of it in terms of making the will conscious or becoming. I don't understand how you could possibly become conscious of will, but something like that. You'd have to get if you talk about decision and there has to be some involvement.
Sorry, such things that affect my organism.
The word was it involvement?
This is my spine, and okay, because it's actually the will. I think is very close to the physical. It's not airy-fairy. That's why. Well, that's why. Now, it shifts the conversation to one of my favorite areas about all of this. Why Bennett in the end, disdained consciousness altogether as being a triviality. And he used to say sort of things that people imagine I'm conscious all the time. He said, it'd be pointless. I'm only conscious when I need to be in order to do something. And what remains always authentic is the will, and this is beyond consciousness. So you're faced with this peculiar image. Some of these things can't be generally appreciated. You're talking about this ultimate thing which is beyond consciousness, and what the hell can I do about it, I don't know, is this on or is it off? Is it here or there? I don't know. But it's, and then he turned the dial again about all of this and said, will is a matter of the understanding. Now this is problematic itself, because most people would take understanding to be a mental thing. You nod and say, I understand, and it's just a little mental arrangement, that's all thought, feeling, and it goes, no, it's not like that. Understand. Why did Gurdjieff say that in meetings, faith is a matter of understanding, which is quite contrary to what most people do. Understanding is just blind belief. No, faith is a matter of understanding, and this is how you make it. So I'm just emphasizing all these things we're talking about in the ordinary world, and culture and language and so on. They're completely incomprehensible. They're completely the opposite.
Reflected upside down in our attention.
Upside down, and consciousness is, you see, it comes, in his, something like Ben, it came into his life, and he had something to do which required that power structuring and embrace and so on. He would switch in, and when he left with it, he could switch off. Going around in a conscious state would be ridiculous. What's the point? It's kind of just indulgence, and I, for myself, come across it in a heightened state. I sort of say, I'm waking up, and I get, what do I do now? and sort of like, you had that? Yeah. And see, because you're getting caught up in the secondary thing, and in the challenges then to find the primary thing. And often, like with many evolutionary steps, there's had this seemingly terrifying thing, and how it's dependent on sacrifice, and it all sounds so la-di-da-di and heroic. I've got to sacrifice these incredible, valuable things to me in order to get to this next step and bring myself. But no, it's just you've got to see through it, see through the veil of consciousness. And it's not, you can't in a sense do it like breaking a favorite cup or anything like that. You just got to recognize this is not the point.
But if you became conscious, then maybe you would go and do something more worthwhile.
That's a good point. Because I've thought about it a lot in all this ghosts and so on becoming conscious, and I say, well, have they done anything more worthwhile in the world because of it? Honest to God, love, yeah, I really mean it. Because I see people doing all these wonderful things in the world, helping other people and sacrificing themselves and all the rest. They don't go to groups and do inner exercises. They just respond to human need. So it comes back to your thing about this. We're a group of people who have adopted this label of being seekers, striving to be conscious and all of that. But we're a pretty limited group. And we have a kind of language which makes sense only to a relatively small part of the population. The rest, it doesn't make sense at all. Yeah. But amongst them might be people of great merit. What they do is significant. And then you have these legends like of the Shahs, 3,000 saints who unconscious saints, don't know the earth saints, which actually keep the world in existence.
It's all because of them, yeah.
Yeah, you've read it, haven't you?
Yeah.
And it's appealing. I don't know these people, but it's all this real spiritual world is not what it is presented at. And I find myself very angry in people who talk about spirituality. Like, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. And that actually what it means is they have no commitments, no obligations, they can go with what they feel like. At least the religions has something which costs you something. You know what I mean? So I think there's mamby-pamby. And also you've been directed, the very thing which you think is the fruit, the merit and so on, is your problem. That's the problem. What you take to be the achievement is the problem, you know. It's
because it's not the goal, is it?
It's not the goal. You see, well, what's the goal? Staring into empty space forever, not being able to do anything. It's like you become a chink where something of another order enters into this existence. But it's all blah blah, you know. One's embarrassed to say these things, you know. I'm embarrassed, you know. The conscious being is decidedly weird. It could be all. Imagine all us in this system and so on. Might be just an aberration.
Oh, I totally see it that way.
Pardon?
I totally see it that way. Like I'm in this because I can't.
Ah, I'm too. What else would I do? Kind of thing.
Well, yeah, something like that. What else would I do? But yeah, I think it's I would call us like something like the casualties of life. Like Gertrude mentions it in some of his talks. Remember that you here at the Pew. Remember that you're on a level lower than the average man who's never tried to do anything. We have you can see it. We have all these ideas about, I'm walking along, all these sleeping people, they don't know what self-remembering is.
Oh, yeah, you've been through that.
That's the devil.
I saw all these sleeping people.
Yeah. Whereas I think, like you said, that's whatever I'm taking as that. What I've got is what separates me from everybody else.
Yeah, it separates you from them. It's true. That's a kind of problem, isn't it? You can't be straight. You used to say, through days, you talk about the gift of the Holy Ghost, which was able to, as in the Quran, I think, speak to each according to their understanding. And the gift of the Holy Ghost at Pentecost and so on, speaking in tongues, is actually that capacity to speak with anybody, not just to preach or anything, but to speak and be heard. And that was the gift of tongues, not as it became the glossolalia. But this is really, really terrific. I think this is what to have more of, because as you get into groups and they were talking as if they knew about consciousness and knew about being, and they had these methods and they know where it's going. But for me, it all starts with seemingly endless, awkward moments of saying, "What's it all about then? Is it really for me?" Because unless you have that, something can go wrong. I was minded, got a lot from hearing a woman priest. She was in a church in London, I've forgotten her name, and it was a program about music, but the interviewer said, you're a cleric, you're in the church and so on, and do you have doubts about your faith? She said, of course I have doubts about my faith. And she said, for me, the opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is certainty.
Yeah.
I thought, I love that woman. But people don't realise about the real Christians today. Some of the real ones have this in them. They know. It's because it's very difficult to say. Why? Because constantly you have to make the decision about the truth of it. You can't give it up to a collective. You're brought up. What about it then?
I see we're coming up to an hour, so I didn't know if you wanted to do some last comments, because we're nearly on an hour.
Yes,
and we've got our banquet to go to.
And you got your dress to put on.
I have to go and put my pretty dress on, and you need to go and do your makeup. So do you have some last comments, either of you? Do you want to start, Josh, or do you want to start, Tony?
So a couple of minutes, one each.
We've more or less said everything, to be honest, I think. Have we finished that off?
Well, I just say, for me, feeling is a bit like, using a metaphor, like we've gone through the event horizon into the black hole.
Yes. And then next time, when we all get together again, we should be in the black hole and give our little dialogue from that.
Right.
So I want to thank you both very much.
And you, darling.
Thank you.
It was great.
Yeah, it worked out.
It did. Our triad came together.
Speaking happened. Yeah.
See, how you got to do these sort of things, because you've got to set them up, but if you do it so that you are setting it up in a framework, no, it doesn't work right. So it's kind of organised spontaneity. You've got to give some form to it.
And then we just let it flow.
You let it flow, and we don't care. And amen.
Amen, and thank you guys. I'm going to switch it off.